Hello, U.S. History 101 class. I'm really excited that we're going to be having this class together. I love teaching U.S. 101. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I did not focus on U.S. history when I was in college. I mainly did like Middle East stuff and world history. And I found it to be rather boring, I'll be honest. And then I taught long-term as a sub U.S. history several times in a high school setting, and I also found it boring. And then I was given a class at MJC to teach 101, and I thought, oh gosh, ugh. But I had this friend that really helped me see how much more interesting it could be. I mean, I want to clarify something. I enjoyed my US 101 class that I had with a professor, actually, when I was a student at Modesto Junior College. But I didn't get a passion for it, is my whole point. And this wasn't the professor's fault. I mean, and he was really good, by the way. But I think that, sometimes in life, you're just not ready for the moment, or something doesn't really click. And then I was just like, as I kind of took a different approach to looking at U.S. history, I just was like, man, I was blown away. And I just realized so many things about it. I mean, part of it is really like so many other things about history, is that we overlook many interesting things. Often in the United States, we look at things in a very limited way. We are isolated for as big as we are, despite the fact that we are the world's largest superpower and we have bases everywhere. You can't get an American, almost like the average American, to find anything on a map of where a U.S. base even is. Like you say, it's bad. It's bad. And my goal is to help you see the importance of understanding our history and making the current political problems, which are tremendous in this country, to bring you into this in a more sophisticated and thoughtful way. I do have strong political points of view. It's, any professor that says they don't is not being honest, right? Well, because we all do, is what I mean, right? Okay. But I'm not interested in shoving my politics down your throat. In fact, I really enjoy the diversity of my students' points of view. My goal is to get you exposed to information perhaps that you have not been exposed to before, and give you a chance to look at things maybe in a new light. And I think that regardless of you being a person that's very conservative or liberal or far left or far right or whatever you're into, anarchist, whatever, that I'm hoping you'll walk away from this class with a deeper understanding of U.S. history, and you'll at least be more informed about what's going on. So for one, the one thing I am going to clarify, and we're going to get to this, is the U.S. Civil War was over slavery, period. And we can prove this in like less than 5 minutes. Really. It's not like some leftist, it's not even anti-Southern. It's not even what it's about. But the fact that this country, that this is even like debated about still, when the information is so clear, so quickly, from indisputable sources, meaning Southern states, when they left, they said they were leaving for slavery. We'll get to that. I'll show you the documents. They all said never said states' rights. They never talked about tariffs, none of that stuff. I mean, you realize there's a crisis in this country of understanding our own history. We don't need to, I'm not talking about we should hate ourselves for everything. We should certainly think critical of everything. But you got to be in reality, folks. I don't care what side of politics you're on. You don't, and it's bad, right? And I think that this part is really crucial. Now, so listen. I have us do a discussion around a book called The People's History by Howard Zinn. Howard Zinn is absolutely, he passed away, he's dead now, but he is a leftist. Okay? He's left on the political spectrum. The reason why I use this textbook is because a good chunk of my students, even my very conservative students, enjoy the discussions that he throws into the topic American history in a way that makes it interesting, that you can have a good debate on. So I'm not expecting anybody to buy into him. And this is very important in this class. I'm exposing you to certain types of information and perspective. You are not expected to just like buy into it like robots. And in fact, there's a book, I don't have it on me now, I just moved a lot of stuff, I'm going to talk about that in a second, that it's called The Patriots' History of the United States, that tried to be a counterbalance to it. I have a friend that's a conservative professor, a good friend of mine, and he had the same conclusion I did, is that the Patriots' history pretends to be an equivalent to the people's history, but it's not. It's because it doesn't excite the conversation. It doesn't. It's basically a standard history, a U.S. history book in many ways, and it just doesn't do the thing for a good discussion. But for those of you who feel like you're just being too indoctrinated and you want to have a more fair and balanced approach to the class, you are welcome to get the Patriots' history, order it online. It's very cheap if you buy it used, and incorporate it into the discussion as a counterbalance if you want to do that. Okay, so I just want to say that. Then we have the history textbook, which is recommended. I think I mentioned this required, but the history textbook itself, you could probably, if you had to not get a textbook or not as prioritized as much, the lecture should be very sufficient. But I like you having the textbook. I like you being exposed to everything. And then later we'll do a discussion over a book called Defending Slavery. This is a very powerful book. This is a book of primary sources, primary text, the words of Southern intellects and their defense of the institution of slavery. And this is what's very interesting. Most of you know that Thomas Jefferson had slaves. And many people can say, well, that was a man of the time, or blah, 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 or however you want to look at it. But most of you haven't read how he justified or actually thought of people of African origin. How Baptist ministers there thought of that. How they justified slavery biblically. It's a little jarring, to be honest. And I just think that it's an interesting perspective, and we are going to talk a lot about the institution of slavery, because you're going to see that you can't not talk about it in terms of some of the fundamental differences of how our nation evolved and how we cracked and split apart and had a civil war. I mean, this is important. Our history is very recent. And, it makes sense. You have to understand something. So not only do we have all these debates around race and all this stuff going on still, but my point is, we literally had, a big civil war, and it was regarding the way that we should deal with a particular institution. So it makes sense that this is still something that has residual effects on our entire culture, no matter what side of the aisle you're on with this. Okay, that's all. So, and this is not. You'll see that my class is very nuanced. I draw in a lot of different perspectives. I talk a lot about the role of Native Americans as well, and their role in the Civil War. By the way, this is a heads up. The last Confederate general to surrender was Cherokee. That's interesting, right? We'll talk about that later as well. So we got a lot to talk about. Now, last thing, I know this is announcement's been a little bit long. I live in Portland right now. There's all this smoke from the fires. Yeah, all these fires everywhere in the world. I used to live in Modesto. I did teach there, but now I just do online. And I'm actually have a one-way ticket to Iceland on Friday. I'm going to be in Iceland for a week. I will be starting this class in Denmark. I have a one-way ticket there to Copenhagen. And then I'm going to be in Sweden, and I'm going to be around some other European places. And then I'm eventually going to be in Thailand. And I'm going to spend most of this semester probably in Thailand. So, I plan on incorporating these different experiences into my announcements and perspectives into our classes, compare and contrast of European stuff and Southeast Asia. I'm hoping to make that extra interesting for you by doing that. But I'll be in a different time zone. There's a chance, I could get some bad food and be out for a little bit. Whatever the case is, I'll be there for you. We'll figure it out. The best way they'll probably be able to communicate with me, because I won't be able to use the phone, is through messages on Canvas. But I'm going to look into things like maybe Skype or other things if you need some help, extra help communication-wise, that would work better outside of just writing back and forth. Oh yeah, I just want to say this last thing. When I'm in Southeast Asia and Thailand, it's not a democracy right now, meaning that I'm not sure how freely I can speak about certain things over there. So I'm going to mind my P's and Q's. When in Rome, do as the Romans, right? Especially when they have the state apparatus, there, very present. So just keep in mind, while I talk really freely about the United States history and all that, and like if you ask me any question about Thailand and I'm not really answering it very clearly, there's a reason. If I think I'm not quite sure how that works, or I'm going to be a little conservative in my approach. When I'm there, I got to do some reconnaissance. I got to figure out like how everything's going down there, and so just keep that in mind, okay? Having said that, I look forward to having you all in this class, and I'm hoping that we have some good discussions. And feel free to hit me up a lot. I'm going to really be focusing on my classes. Last thing, real quick. Look, and I'll say this again several times. The discussions, there's a fine line between free speech and respectableness in a classroom, okay? I'll be the arbitrator. We are living in sensitive times. People are really mean to each other right now over their points of view. I'm really going to be want to monitor that the classroom's discussions don't look like what happens on Facebook or YouTube, okay? Like we respect each other in this classroom. Do you understand? So I don't care if your views are the same as mine. You can't talk to another student, insult them or say something that is very offensive. There's always a way you can have a better discussion about this. So I just want you to keep that in mind, okay? So I'm into advocating for free speech, but this is a classroom, and you need to just respect each other, okay? That's a fair kind of thing for me to try to monitor or do whatever. Anyhow, I haven't getting much sleep, and I'm getting ready for this travel, so we'll be in touch, everybody. Look forward to class.